Hey everyone, Mark here from the windowcleaningstore.com. In today's video, something a little bit different. We're going to be talking a little bit more about politics, global trade. More importantly, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, his crazy tariffs against not only Canada and Mexico, but one by one, pretty much every trading partner the US has is getting hit with tariffs. And really what it comes down to is, what is this going to mean for the window cleaner out there, especially the Canadian window cleaner, since I do service mostly Canadian window cleaners? How much you're going to pay more for certain things this year because of these tariffs. And I know I have a lot of subscribers that are American. You're definitely going to want to watch certain sections of this video because it also applies to you. So to make this video easy to navigate, I'm going to divide it into three parts. Part one is going to be my political take on the situation. I'm not going to go into great detail. This is not right versus left kind of politics. This is just, the politics of trade. Part two is going to be what you can expect to pay more for this year because of all these tariffs going back and forth. And then part three is what I'm going to be doing here at the window cleaning store to help keep costs down and certain ways that you might be able to save, or you have a benefit of saving simply because you are in Canada versus being in the US. So part one, just a quick political take on this tariff/trade war that we are now in with the USA. So back around 5 years ago, near the end of Trump's first term, he negotiated with Canada and Mexico what he called the greatest trade deal in the history of the world, the USMCA trade deal. Fast forward 5 years later, and suddenly it's the worst deal ever, and it was so unfair to the USA. Don't know how that happened. But anyway, listen, Trump is entitled to his opinion. The American people are entitled to their opinion. It doesn't make it a fact, however, and that's why countries like Canada and Mexico are doing reciprocal tariffs. Not to punish, not to try to punish, but simply to level the playing field. And reciprocal tariffs are necessary. I understand there's a lot of Canadians out there that say, listen, I understand how tariffs work. It's only our goods going into the US that were going to be taxed, and that it was going to be the Americans that had to pay that. Wouldn't we be in a win situation if we didn't tariff their goods coming in? It means we could pay less for goods where they have to pay more? Well, that only works in a society where we're nothing but consumers. But in Canada, we're not just consumers. We actually do have a manufacturing sector. We have an agricultural sector, huge agricultural sector, between fruits, vegetables, grains, seeds, wheat, all kinds of stuff like that. Natural resources, oil, natural gas, minerals, steel, aluminum, high-grade nickel, lithium, all these things we are very, very rich in, but we have to produce it and get it prepared for export. And the last thing we want to do is export it at a lower rate because, Americans say, gee, it's costing us too much, we're going to buy less. That's going to hurt all those sectors I just described. But if we continue to buy American goods at regular non-tariff prices, it's basically telling the Americans, listen, if we produce it ourselves here in America, we have a customer in Canada. So that hurts our industry in Canada again. So double damage. So yes, I believe in reciprocal tariffs as much as it seems like it's bad for us. But you're going to want to pay attention to the next part two, because it's what you can expect to pay more for and why. And it's not exactly what you think. Okay, now for part two, that is what Canadian window cleaners can expect to pay more for in 2025 due to these tariffs and, of course, this trade war that's been blown wide open. Now, American viewers, you're going to want to watch this as well because there's a bit of a twist to the story. So back about a month ago when Trump launched his first wave of tariffs against Canadian goods coming into the US, Canada responded with about $30 billion worth of reciprocal tariffs. Now, they released a list for all Canadians. They could see what those items were. And I went through that list at the time, and absolutely nothing to do with our industry was on that list. So in that first round, we kind of dodged a bullet. Fast forward a few weeks later, Trump then launched a 25% tariff on all our aluminum and steel coming in from Canada to the US. Canada released its second wave of reciprocal tariffs. And as you guessed it, now all our window cleaning related items are on that list. So yes, things like extension poles, scrubbers, squeegees, scrapers, this kind of thing, we're all going to be paying more for in 2025 going forward, as long as all these tariffs are in place. But it's not exactly for the reason that you're thinking. You see, so far I've really only been talking about Canada and the US. Did mention Mexico very briefly. But in the last week or so, you probably have noticed that Trump is lashing out against all its trading partners. China, of course, they're always hitting against China. And Europe as well, and certain other parts of Asia. Pretty much everyone that the US does any kind of trade with, he's putting tariffs on. And he's going to be doing another one at the beginning of April. If he holds true to his word, on April 2nd, there's going to be an even bigger retaliatory tariff against anybody who he doesn't feel is playing fair with the US. And what that means in the end is it doesn't matter at this point whether or not this pole here is from China or this pole here is from the USA. See, here's the thing. If a company in Canada has got to buy from the USA, we're buying on basically what the cost of those goods were to get produced. So if Ettore gets his pole made in China and then coming in to their factories or their warehouses, they're hit with huge tariffs against Chinese-made products, it means even before this leaves Ettore, the price has gone up. Same thing for this pole here or anything else. Like, for instance, all these washer sleeves made in Europe, they're all being hit with huge tariffs. And that's even before it even leaves Unger's warehouse, Ettore's warehouse, IPC Pullock's warehouse, Mormon's warehouse. Anything that's coming into the USA is getting heavily taxed. So product coming out to me or product going out to an American window cleaning supplier, window cleaning resource, J. Racenstein, Windows 101, they're all going to have to pay more, which means Americans are going to have to pay a lot more. Nothing to do with Canada, nothing to do with US-Canadian trade. In fact, I got a letter as recently as 3 days ago from Unger, basically telling us that, you know what, our costs for goods to get made is basically going up, in some cases, as much as 30%. And therefore, there's going to be another price increase. Unger just raised their prices a few months ago. They're going to have to do it again next month. And like I said, this has nothing to do with US-Canada trade. So yes, we're all going to pay more here in North America for basic window cleaning tools for no other reason than Trump is picking a fight with the entire world. Nothing to do with Canada-US relations. Isn't that an interesting twist? So anyway, you're probably going to want to watch part 3 now, which is mostly going to apply to Canadians, on what I'm doing to help keep costs down. And now for part 3 of my video, and we'll just call this Every Cloud Has a Silvery Lining. Really applies to the Canadian window cleaner in this case. You see, I mentioned that a lot of companies that are based in the US have their products manufactured overseas, whether in Europe or in Asia, and that's going to be the biggest cause of price increases for Canada. However, there are many products, and I'd probably say at this point, there's probably about 60% of the stuff that I have on my shelves that don't come up through the USA. They come from overseas. Buying direct, a lot of things like carbon fiber poles, generic poles here, like this blue one here, I get direct from China. Our buckets you see behind me coming from China. A lot of the washer sleeves, some of them we can get from Europe direct. Some certain squeegee rubbers we can get direct from overseas. In other words, you're not going to see that much of an increase. And you're going to probably, when you browse my website, you're probably going to see a big price discrepancy in the next little while between some of the major brands like Unger or Ettore are going to be priced really high. And you're going to see other brands priced a lot, substantially lower. There's a lot of other ways you can certainly save too by buying through the window cleaning store. If you're a Canadian window cleaner, let's take, for instance, extension poles. So in my left hand, we have the Unger. This is the most popular window cleaning pole we sell for the aluminum kind versus this generic brand. So 2 8-foot poles. This one is basically costing you, the consumer, twice the amount of this blue one here. They work pretty similar. The blue one's not quite as strong, and you probably notice it doesn't have a locking pole tip. However, it is very much compatible with Unger poles in that if you wanted to, you could buy this pole here, put on a Unger tip. I know it's a mixture of blue and green, but you basically have a pole that's going to function the same way for pretty much just over half the price of this Unger. There's lots of different ways there you can save. There's certain washer sleeves I would definitely recommend. You'll still be able to get great pricing on Pull-X sleeves. Pull-X rubber is another one. You should be able to still get pretty decent pricing on that compared to some of the other brands. Yeah, Pull-X rubber, you're probably going to have to change it out more often than, let's say, Ettore. But Ettore is an American brand. It is made in the USA, so there's definitely going to be tariffs on that. And then I mentioned carbon fiber poles. Pretty much every carbon fiber pole that we're bringing in from this point forward at the moment is coming direct from China. All our trad poles, I haven't raised my price on trad poles this year. The Legend trad poles is still the same price as 2024. So there's savings there. Things like specialized towels and just any towels in general. You probably recognize this towel. This towel's been popularized in the last few years. I bought this direct from the factory. I had to buy a ton of it, but I bought a lot of these towels direct from the factory, shipped direct to me, and you're going to see that it's priced much, much lower on my site compared to any American site. So little things like that. Our fish scale towels, you'll notice our fish scale towels are a lot better priced than what you'd see on an American site. Surgical towels, for some reason there's been a bit of a shortage in the US. We're still getting a good supply of surgical towels here. And I only just raised my price for the first time since I opened in 2013. First time this year, I increased the price. I had to. I can't sell at the same price for over 10 years, which I have been doing. So I finally raised the price just a little bit, not that much. And there's all kinds of other little things. We have soap alternatives that are made in Canada. We have our Pro Glass Glide in quarts and in gallons. That's made in Windsor. We also have a gutter cleaner that works like Gutter Zap. That's made in Windsor as well. Like I mentioned, all our buckets, either our compact buckets or 6-gallon buckets, we all get that direct in from China. So a lot of price savings there. 95% of our water-fed brushes are either from China or they're from the UK. Now, probably the ones from the UK are probably originally made in China as well. But still, another example of a couple things that we don't have to get through the USA. We have a great alternative 6-inch scraper. This is direct from China, as well as universal stainless steel 6-inch blades. They work with Unger. This scraper, of course, Triumph, and even the Ettore 6-inch scraper. Perfect compatibility there. So talking back for a minute, talking about water-fed equipment again. Like I mentioned, the majority of the carbon fiber poles that we have, the Black Knight, the Legend, and the 3K poles, are direct from the factories in China. These are the same factories that are producing all the major brands in the US, just different branded, a little bit different here in Canada. A lot of our water-fed systems are, for the most part, built in Canada using a combination of Canadian and parts from Asia. So what that really means at the end of the day is you're barely paying any more in 2025 than you were in 2024. So good news for anybody getting into water-fed pole. And of course, being a Canadian company, I like to support other Canadian companies. So if you order from me and I have to ship to you, more than likely, I'd say 90% of the time, it's going to be shipped through Purelator, which is at this moment about 97% Canadian owned and operated. The only time I really pick UPS is if I notice that it'll get to my end customer sooner. So for instance, if I'm shipping to British Columbia, I notice most of the time Purelator says 5 days, where UPS says 4 days. I understand you paid for your stuff. You want to get it in your hands as soon as possible. And if I can get it to you 1 day sooner, you're going to be a happy customer, which of course helps my business thrive if you keep coming back to me because you're happy. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you very much. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what's going on with these tariffs. Then basically it's a global trade war we've got going on right now. And hopefully it'll help you make some smarter buying decisions in 2025 and keep your cost increases to a minimum. Anyway, thanks for watching.